Hello, reader. I'm Alix.
I'm Kelly.
And this is
the LitJoy podcast.
We have Chelsea Abdullah on the podcast today, sharing with us her 5 influential books, or 5 books that influenced her, or 5 books that she loves, that kind of a thing. Perfect. Okay, take it away, Chelsea.
Great. So many books that I love, but, pulled off some things on my shelves that, always stand out to me. So first, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I adore this book. One of the things that I love about Erin Morgenstern's writing is that setting is a character for her. And so as a reader, I always feel so immersed in her worlds. I have a lot of respect for her as a writer as well, as someone who's always trying to inject more magic into my world. I think that is something that Erin Morgenstern is a master at. So I adore The Night Circus, always recommending this book. Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir.
Love this one.
This book is so wacky. If you asked me to, summarize it for you, I probably would not be able to. But I will say necromancers, skeletons in space. And one thing I love about, Gideon the Ninth and, sort of this entire series, the characters are just absolutely fantastic. Gideon is one of my favorite narrators of all time. She just has such a fun voice. Her humor is so fun. And, even when the book got confusing, even when, there were all these twists and turns in the plot, I was always so thrilled to be following Gideon on the adventure. And, generally am excited to keep following these characters into the future. Next up, I have She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Also included He Who Drowned the World, which is the second book in their duology. She Who Became the Sun is one of those books that, as a creator, when I read it, it kind of feels like my brain is expanding. When you read an author that just has the most gorgeous prose, whose work is so put together and just so clever. That is how I feel about Shelley Parker Chan's books. These characters are so messy. They're very nuanced. Very often I found myself disagreeing with what they were doing on the page. But at the same time, Shelley's ability to paint these characters in such realistic shades and to make them feel heroic, even if not to the world, but to themselves, I think is so admirable. So I adore this duology and I think it's definitely worth checking out. A Master of Djinn by P. Djèlí Clark. This one is really fun. I'm holding up the UK edition here. But A Master of Djinn takes place in sort of a fantastical Cairo. It's like a steampunk Cairo. This is historical in the sense of, things have happened in the story that are happening or have happened in Cairo. But it's kind of an alternate history. And the story follows this detective, Agent Fatima, who is trying to uncover the murder behind this terrible murder that has happened in the city recently. And, on her way to figure out, what all is happening, she'll have to gather clues from Djinn characters, from all these like different creatures, and, of course, have to deal with the murderer himself, who he's got a lot of magical tricks up his sleeve. So this one is very thrilling, very exciting, and the characters and setting are just so much fun. And then lastly, Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This one is so lovely. So in general, I have a lot of respect for Silvia and her ability to hop between genres. She does that so well. But Gods of Jade and Shadow has a special place in my heart, just for the way that it is told. It feels very much like a folkloric story. I feel like it's very hard to sort of pin down that voice, that distant voice that you feel when you're listening to a fairy tale. But this felt, when I was reading this book, it felt like I was listening to a fairy tale. It felt very magical. It's based on Mexican folklore, which is really cool. One of the main characters is a personification of death. So I really, in general, love to see those personifications and interpretations in fantasy. So yeah,
that sounds really cool. That last title, I was like, yes, please.
Yes. Love that. That's a beautiful list. Yeah. And also I feel like it was one of our Fun Fridays where it was a lot in a similar genre. And it seems like you definitely have this preferred type of fantasy. And what I'm loving about it is that comes to life in your books so clearly. It's like, it's so clearly that there is those elements, those storytelling elements, that injecting a ton of fantasy into it and just making people's days more magical.
Yeah. Like a living fairy tale.
Yeah, like a living, and it's so beautiful.
Mystical.
And it's part of exactly why we started a company, is because I think people can always use that injection of magic into their day. So that was a beautiful list. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for that.
Thank you.
I know our readers are going to love it. And it was so lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, it was lovely to chat with you both as well. Thank you for having me on the show and letting me share my recommendations.
Thank you, reader, for listening. Please remember to rate and review us.
And like a good book, recommend us to your friends.